What's up, Signal Profits family? The weekly closes here. We got Chinggis on here, and we're going to rock and roll. Let me just make sure that everything's good. Make sure you guys post in the chat. Say hi, say hey, what's up? If you got questions, if you got charts that you want us to look at, make sure you start posting them so we can go through them. And let me just check, make sure everything is rocking and rolling. Oh, orange tint, orange tint.
Oh, geez. Bat says it's cleared to launch. Biggest news of the week. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, we got an initial little pop and then nothing.
Yeah, it was kind of boring. Almost a double top, really. Bring that 4 hour up.
Okay, so what are we looking at? Let's start with the high time frame first. See what our weekly's looking like. Weekly is definitely not what we wanted to see after last week's weekly. Basically, we have an inverted hammer here, which is usually a reversal into an uptrend, but mostly it's just really been a tight consolidated range. We closed last week, Sunday, we barely closed it above this very, very key resistance level at around 11,500. We did close above, and then we popped up to 12,300, but then we had this massive sell-off, almost 23% down. And so really, we've been in a range just basically between this resistance and this resistance, which is acting as kind of a floor of support. So it really gives you kind of perspective on what's going on. So the range has really been basically just about a 20% range, up and down, up and down, up and down. But the hard part and the tricky part has been all these wicks. So it means that the market is really kind of at a standstill between buyers and sellers. Sellers control it up here, buyers control it down here. So the question is just who's gonna break first? Are the sellers going to kind of let up their control here, or are the buyers going to let up their control here? And whoever blinks first is basically which way the trend will go. And some of that depends on macro, but most of it, we can identify with technicals here. So if you saw yesterday's live stream as a VIP, then you'll know that we had talked about kind of when the best buy opportunities are. And from an RSI perspective, I'm going to have to change this really quick back to a 14 period. From an RSI perspective, what I am watching for, and I still believe that we'll get this, it might not happen now. Oops, we have to go to BTCUSD. It might not happen at exactly this period and point in time, but still it's important. So this 53, 54, 52 to 54 zone, one here, one basically resistance. What we are looking for is a touch on that 54 on the weekly RSI. That's basically our reset gauge to reset and then continue to the upside. Every kind of reset, we saw this nice spike, pullback, spike, pullback, spike, pullback. And also the other aspect of that coincides really well with it is a touch on our 21 period moving average, exponential moving average. So that 21 exponential moving average is also at the lower end of our channel that has propped Bitcoin up. It was resistance, broke out, came back down, then it was support. Then we broke out, came down, we tested this lower band, and now this blue also coincides with our 21 period moving average. So that level right there is at around 8,800 to 9,000. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at specifically is that 21 period moving average. And that's the point where we can go, all in on spot and then hold for the next peak, which, could be 17,000, 18,000, maybe back to 20,000. But my expectation is that we do something kind of like this where we just grind along this gray and blue zone, kind of like this gray and blue zone, and we kind of grind up until we see some sort of massive catalyst that pops us out of that range and takes us up to either the gold or the purple, and those could be anywhere from 50,000 to 200,000, depending on how long this trend goes, right? That's out to 2020, but the longer that we take this out. But one of those I do believe will be hit at some point based on the long-term trend. Okay, so back to the weekly on XBT USD. The weekly is not looking super great. Hey, Miles, how's it going? Samuel, Kevin, what's going on, guys? Hey, if you're watching, just make sure you say hi in the chat. If you got some questions, any charts you guys want to look at, make sure you throw those in there for us. Okay, so weekly. We bounced off this top zone. We bounced off this bottom zone. The daily is kind of painting a little bit of a different story. We did hit this lower zone. We had this nice buyback off of the 9,500 level. It tried to test it again. We hit the 9,700 level, bounced up again. And it really looked like it had a lot of strength to the downside. Whenever it's below the 21 EMA, I don't typically like to take too many long positions. I like it to break out first, just because it's showing a sign of weakness. So the trend is fairly weak. But we do have some buying pressure going on here. Hey, John, what's going on? Brendan W., how's it going, man? Okay, so what we see here is we see a bit of an ascending support here. So it's possible that all we do is we just come back to this 10,250, test that, and bounce off again. We've bounced off this a couple of times. Now, typically you see ascending triangles in the middle of an uptrend for a continuation to the upside. So this could be an ascending triangle, but don't let that fool you, because we did see an ascending triangle here, which was at the bottom of this downtrend, which was also kind of an Adam and Eve cup and handle, extended handle over here. But so we do see those ascending triangles at the bottom of downtrends. And these are Elliott wave. They're kind of like flat wave corrections. But so we do see something like that similar, where it's like sellers are up here, but buyers are kind of pushing up and up and up. And so you can see those, but typically they happen more in the middle of an uptrend. So it's a less valid structure than, let's just say, a bear flag like this. So that is also a possibility, but both of those would still give us a topside push of around 11,000, 10,800. You can even draw it kind of like this. You want those as parallel as possible. And so either way, that still give us a push up to about 10,800 to 11,000. And that can still be bearish, believe it or not. Now, the other thing that I'm watching for to really feel comfortable in going long, I really wanted to see a break above this 200-day moving average. And what you can see is rejection, 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 rejection. We've been rejected multiple times. The only thing that's giving me hope is this rising support here. But all in all, the volume, we'll take a look at the volume and the VPVR. If you guys want me to explain anything a little bit more, I can. We had some really nice reflexive volume here, but nothing out of the unusual, nothing too out of the ordinary here. And the sell volume came in pretty strong as soon as we hit it. It was mostly sell volume, very nice reflexive volume here, and it formed this nice pin bar reversal. So that could have been a nice, decent long play, 9,800. But for me, I was just kind of waiting to see a little bit more volume. Kind of blurry. Is it just me? Let me see here. This resistance, which is active.
Just hit your hit that settings gear wheel, and the last option is quality. So if it's in auto right now, just move that up. You have the options of 720 and 1080. You should be fine.
Yeah, my technical support is right on it. Okay, so we do have about 20 minutes before this weekly to close, and we are seeing some sell-off right now. And we're testing the 200-day moving average on the 30-minute. 15-minute. So with the confluence of support here, and you can see it, rejected it once, rejected it twice, broke through, finding support on it now. Let's take a look at the 30-minute. Testing the 100 MA. All right, so we broke above that 30-minute 200 MA, and that 200 MA on the 30-minute is actually pretty valid. It reacts around that quite a bit. And we are breaking above it now. And then let's take a look at the hourly. We are breaking below the 20 MA and the 50 MA. So that 100 MA is right at that lower channel though. So That could be a very nice speculative long around 10,250. Again, the volume doesn't speak for much. We had that little pop this morning, but volume's just kind of been dead ever since, which is usually pretty bearish at this level. And I really would have liked to break above this zone to take a long, because that zone was that 4 hour 200 MA, which we really couldn't crack it yet. And once we break that, then we'll probably get a retest, and that's where it's nice that we can kind of go long there. Obviously, you can definitely long on lower end supports as a kind of a potential move there, but I'm just talking about lower risk because the market's been kind of selling off so hard. But there is some risk because we did have an impulse, and this is a correction, so it's possible that we get another impulse to the downside to test that lower zone that I was looking for. Okay, I'm gonna pass it over to what time is it? 7:45. All right, let's take a look at a few other altcoins real quick, and then we'll go from there. LTC BTC, we took a long position here. As you can see, we had this downtrend. We broke out of it. We're trying to close above it. What I would look for is a retest of this previous support zone, but most likely probably here. Here will probably be the top there. So it's 20%. JC, quick question on Bitcoin. Yeah, go ahead, man. Just ask your questions in chat, guys, so then I can kind of, just answer them as we go. Litecoin, we did hit the 200 MA and 200 EMA on the hourly, and it does look like we're selling down a little bit here. Nothing to worry about quite yet. We'll see if that 20 MA holds. 4 hour 50 MA rejection. Probably come down to retest that 20-day moving average. And then you mentioned that if a parabola is broken, statistically 80% reduction. That is true. In parabolic advances, but that parabola has been redrawn so many times that hard to tell. I'll go over that in just a sec. Okay, so a couple other things. Oh, man, I missed that long on POA earlier. Damn it. I was going to send that as a trade. I saw some nice reflexive volume coming in. Looked like some whale accumulation, but popped in the last hour for 18%. Okay, so not much. We had little pops today on a lot of altcoins, but not much since then. We had Ripple that kind of popped from that low point, and it hit this high time frame resistance, and it looks like it's selling down now. We'll see if that has any sort of life in it. One had a nice little pop. Nothing was too crazy. Yesterday during the stream, I mentioned one. So from yesterday to today, when was yesterday's stream? 17th. Yeah, so basically one popped for about 7.8%. So, if you bought it yesterday, up 10%. That was one, and then Loon was our other. Loon BTC. Loon was the other trade we were watching. So from yesterday we had, let me see. So yeah, right here it popped off nicely for about 5%, kind of consolidating now. Looks like pretty decent, holding that 20 moving average on the 4 hour. Target is still that 200-day moving average. So those were the two trades that I saw yesterday. ERD was one that I had been spotting for basically algo and ERD. They were typically moving together. We are in an algo trade. But the 100-day moving average, as soon as it broke that, it popped off. I think the biggest thing on this one was the Ishimoku. There was like a Komu twist. And let me see. Not on the 4 hour. Was it the hourly? I was looking at it earlier. 30-minute, daily. I don't remember what I was looking at. Probably the hourly. Get rid of this stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so ERD, it held this, nice support zone. I said 23 would be a good area to buy because it was the 618 pullback of this impulse. We had, basically it kind of came up. It broke that 61.8, came down, retested it in that 23 zone. Wasn't an official signal just because it's such low sat. It's really hard to manage risk on these guys. Like 3-4 sats drop is basically like, 20%. Algo BTC. Yeah, we'll take a look. So we moved up our risk on Algo. We came to the bottom of the cloud, got rejected. Let's take a look at all our moving averages here. 4 hour. So still consolidating. We're in this trade. It's holding the 200-day moving average. Those are usually really, really solid places to buy. As supports, you can see here it bounced 17%, 18%. Here it bounced 4%. We're holding that 200-day moving average on the 4 hour. I usually really, really like those as a play. We got 13% to the top side. On the daily, not enough data to get us that 4 hour 200 MA, but we are holding that 20 MA like a rock. And so still really not a bad trade to be in. I like Algo. It's one of the only trades we've sent in a while. Came down, tested our support. That's where we decided to buy in. Metal broke that long time resistance. Could you see it real quick? Yep, absolutely. And then I'll send it over to Mr. Chingus to give his perspective on the market. Okay, so metal, we're not quite out of long-term resistance yet. We're not actually even above the 20-day moving average. We just kind of wicked above it. If we look here, not much there. Let's take a look. Oh my God, what a shitcoin, huh? This thing has had such a roller coaster. I've traded it so many times, but it got delisted from Bittrex. Then it got relisted to Bittrex. Then it got delisted again. Then it got relisted. I mean, I remember trying to trade it, and then it got listed on. But I think this was the delisting or something. I can't remember, but and then they got their money transmitter license. I know the CEO. He's such a nice guy, but it's definitely a shitcoin. Okay, so we're not even above the 20-day moving average yet. From a day trading perspective, if you guys are looking for intraday trades, the best intraday trades are typically found above the 200-day moving average because you have a definitive trend going in your direction. And so it's much easier to buy pullbacks when you're above the 200-day moving average than it is to buy pullbacks when you're below the 200-day moving average because the trend is just decidedly down. Like buying in, trying to find these uptrends here. I mean, even though that did like 137%, by and large, statistical data, if you backtest like the quant data, it's all just going to be, you could try and long these, but you're just going to get wrecked. And so the most important thing that we want to look for is, we want to be above that 200-day moving average on the daily for a majority of our trades. The unfortunate thing is like 98% of the altcoins are not above their 200-day moving average. And so it makes it hard to find good quality altcoin trades because they're all below their 200 moving average. So basically what that means is that the overall prevailing trend is down. Okay, so we are attempting to close above it now on the daily, this little trend here. I'm going to close our moving averages out real quick so we get a nice clean structure. So we've got this nice falling wedge. We had a bullish, not quite a bullish divergence on the daily. Let's see if the 12 hour. Not quite there either. So we're just now forming kind of a reversal point. Yeah, we never really got a bullish divergence, even on the 4 hour. We just had that nice little pop. Could have been a pump and dump. Hard to say with this. If it was, that was kind of a weak pump and dump. But it did break this falling wedge structure. I would like to see this get above 50 first and kind of hold above 50 as support. Just because once you get above 50, it's much, it's like just a better uptrend. You could see here, we never got above 50, and we're getting close. Once you get above that 50, probably 52 mark, that's when those uptrends kind of really start to push up. And I'll show you a really good example back here. So downtrend. So once we broke 50 here, okay, so see how that's like 45 level, but once we broke 50 to the downside and we started trending, that's when you can exit this position. Bears are in control. You would have avoided a 70-80% drawdown. And then now we're popping back up. We never got quite back above the 70 level on the daily. But once we got back above, let's say 50, take a trade 25%. And then we broke back below. So we exit, once we break back below, then we come back up. This is mostly a shit coin that they can't really even afford to pump it much. Anybody that can't afford market makers to pump, you don't want to be in that trade. Okay, Link BTC. Let's take a look. Ooh, looking very strong. 24,304. Daily looks great, pushing up against that top side resistance. Looking beautiful. I think we're up. Let me look and see where we bought in the trade. Link almost hitting target 1 for 10%. So initial entry was 22 to 23. So let's take a look. Let's 22. Yeah, so basically right on that sell off there. So up about 4% so far, but on its way to T1. Again, it's coming up towards that resistance point. I think hopefully this time we break through, and then we'll just have price discovery to the upside as we kind of retest some of these points back here. I know you love the RSI. What time frame do you suggest is the best for doing its magic? Well, they all kind of tell you different stuff, and it depends on what kind of trading strategy you're doing. For swing tradings, though, the daily is a beautiful one to go with. As you can see here, we held the 30. We never actually broke below the 30, just a little bit back here. But once we broke above the 50 with some nice volume, we kind of came back, retested the 40. But even here, once you get back above the 50 and then you came down and held it as support, look at that. So now you kind of know that bears are in control here. And this is kind of where we would have bought back in. You would have had a stop, let's say, below the swing low if you want like a really deep one. But even at, yeah, I guess 9%. But I like 10% usually stop losses. So it would have come close. But even still, this 50 RSI was pretty damn good for this bull run. And as you can see, you don't really miss much. Even if you miss kind of like, a lot of people, they'll will miss like, 50%. Oh, we missed the trade. Well, not really. I mean, you still had 180, 190% trade, but it's a lot safer because you're not trying to catch downtrend, catch downtrend. Stochastic RSI versus RSI. What are the major differences? Well, stochastic is an oscillator that's very, very different. They're calculated quite a bit different. And the stochastic RSI is mostly used for Forex. So I would not use it for crypto. I would use the stochastic and I would just use RSI. And there's different periods for the RSI. I prefer the 14 for my swing trades. When I'm timing like scalp trades, I'll use 2-period moving RSI. In a uptrend, this will give you really good buy zones when it kind of touches sub like 10. And this doesn't work all the time, but it's a really good kind of trick strategy that is pretty effective. As you can see here, like gives you the bottom. Here it gives you the bottom. Here gives you the bottom. And that's usually really, it's a lot more effective when you're above the 200-day moving average, just because you know that the trend is up. Here we broke that kind of trend, a little bit of a bear trap down here, lots of FUD sell off, and then it kind of came back up, but still solid places to long on that oversold area of the two period RSI. Okay, so let's go over to Chingus, the man, the myth, the legend, and let's see what he's got for us.
All right, so might as well go. We'll cycle back to Bitcoin real quick. Let's just talk about that weekly just for a minute. We are about to close it down in 2 minutes and 55 seconds. So the weekly is, not great. What you'll probably hear on Twitter is bearish engulfing, which will lead to further downside, lots of FUD, all sorts of information like that. Just look at the price action. That's all you need to look at, right? So as far as the weekly is concerned, still very much in an uptrend. That's this right here. Bang, bang, boom, boom. We got ourselves a symmetrical triangle at the top side. So within this triangle, right, these are kind of our boundary lines. So as we look closer into the daily, that's what we're looking at as resistance. This is the top side swing fail. That's that line I keep bringing up on the daily. That's over here. So
can you change your background color to like pure black? The gray makes it a little fuzzy.
The gray makes it. Oh, the gray is just the. It's only.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's only gray because I'm zoomed in. That's just part of the. I can get rid of that. It's fine. Gone. So when you look at the original swing fail, that's this guy right here. So within the boundaries, right? That's what we've been talking about. Within the boundaries, we're still looking to get up back to the 20. Nothing's changed on that side. 20 still sitting at 10.8. Now it's pushed itself up to 10.889. That's this level right here. We do have the bullish crossover. We got that the other day, 2050. Not a huge deal. It's just something to think about. That's all. Give you a little bit of something, at least as far as
A
the
little
bulls are
something,
concerned.
something. Bitcoin just needs to give us a little something, something.
That's it. And it did earlier. So if you look at the hourly, right? If you look at just this section right here from where you see the volume profile over, right? Those are the last 24 hours of trading. So within the day, right, early on, midnight push over, you found a new, level. So this down right here, this became your daily support, more or less, right here. That's where the buying came in. Big push up. That was great. And then we got like a few more hours of some attempts, right, in the 10-5 zone, but we got a tweezer top on the hourly, and it just kind of slowly bled out from there. One decent pump a few hours back, and then we just gave it all right back. And since then, we just had some buying on the 15-minute, but now we're being propped up, right? So remember we talked about the other day, don't worry about that 20, right? It'll be a magnet. Either price will go to it or it will go to the price, right? But one way or another, we are going to touch it. Well, we did today. That's what just happened. So just on the hourly, and then same thing happens with the 4, same thing happens with the 12 and the 8 and the daily. Eventually, you're going to get a touch, right? It's just what happens first. Is price going to drag it along with it and then come back, snap back and touch it? Or is it going to be the other way around where we're going to end up bleeding down to it? So we just closed the daily candle out. Let's take a look at that. So as far as
real quick, I wanted to show something real quick.
Yeah, do it.
We are watching alts to scale in. They are holding on. Dominance is holding on by our little tentative thread. It's teasing us. It's about as close on support as you can get. You can see 1 touch, 2 touch, 3, and it's just crawling along like a little inchworm on support. I have to zoom in really, really close. Look at that little
That's ridiculous.
little inchworm of support, man. That dominance does not want to break. So once that dominance breaks out to the downside, you can see there's our support, and then all the way back and down here, that was our support. So that's our support line. And you can see dominance just does not want to break there. But once that breaks, I think that Ethereum, Ripple, the Litecoin, a lot of those, that's when we'll see the majors probably take some market share back. I don't know if it'll go right to shitcoins or IEOs or anything like that, but typically when we see like the first break, we see majors kind of get it, and then it feeds down to the other ones. It's kind of like popular kids first, and then everybody else. All right, back to you, man. I'm gonna go get my daughter to bed. I wish I was trading this, but I'll probably be trading from my phone. So,
dear Lord. All right, so to close the candle out, let's just get our numbers real quick. Let's see what we did, and then we'll close the weekly out and see what we got over there. So we opened up at 10,217. We had a high of 10,513, so we were able to creep it up $300. A low down to 1066, so we dropped 200 on that side. Closed it out at 10,315, basically right in the middle, right? So up $100, about 1%. On the weekly, though, different story, right? So the weekly close got us this. We opened at 11,540. Remember those days? We had a high of 11,555. So literally up $15. All right, a low down to 94.70. Support came back, buying came back, closed it out at 10,315. So down $1,225 or 10%. So really not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, 10%. When you're looking at something, I believe we've already gone somewhere around 250%. Let's just double check that real quick. But from the bottom of our trend to our top, 321%. So 321%, take 10 away. I mean, it's fine. We're still in trend. I don't think anybody's complaining about that. The issue becomes when you start looking at those intradays, the hourly, the 4-hour, the 12-hour, you get that tunnel vision. You start thinking, well, we're breaking down. It's over. The apocalypse, Bitcoin's dead, another funeral, and, the story goes on. So as far as the candle itself, right? This is crypto, 24-hour market. We don't deal with wicks when we talk about bullish and bearish engulfing. At least I don't. I know that's a massive debate between analysts. But I just look at the psychology of it, right? So this is it. Right? Volume came up, pushed up. We attempted a high. We got pushed down, right? So bears are in control right here on this candle. This week comes in. There was zero attempt to the upside. Bears took full control the whole way, pushed it down to a further level where buying came back up. Satisfaction came, and then we closed it right above the 9 EMA. So who would be in control? I would say the bears. So if the momentum is with anybody, right, it's with the bears. Now, typically on a bearish engulfing candle, you would look for a full engulfing of the previous candle, right, and then a 2x. Not and then a 2x, just twice the amount. So look at the size of the candle, right? Close about less than half, right? And the rest of it is the double. So this is as bearish as it gets. That being said, I don't want to scare you into saying like, oh, well, 6K is the next stop. Just take it for what it is. There's been plenty of times where candles have been right and candles have been wrong, but just go into the week knowing, right, that analysts will look at this and they will say bearish engulfing, or they'll give it another name, some cute name, or whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, this candle is bearish, and it's a weekly close, and it's bearish. All right, now we did lose our 7 EMA. That's basically the fastest one I'll use. I don't really mess around with 6 or 5 or 4, 3, 2, or 1, but I will use the 7 and I will use the 9. You'll see those on most of my charts, where the 7 is sort of like the first touch, and the backup plan is kind of like the 9. So it's the same deal right here. We lost the 7. We have support on the 9. If we lose the 9, then we have to start looking at other MAs, and that's when we start diving into our daily charts and seeing what they're doing. You can see how we lost it here, and we got it all right back. So it's not the end of the world. Now, finding this support level is bullish, okay? Also, trading in between the swing fails is perfectly fine, all right? Now, if we keep trading within them, it just becomes a broadening wedge. But for now, it's just, you have a swing fail support and a swing fail resistance, right? One of these is going to win eventually. Even if you just went sideways forever, the top side would win, right? 20 MA on the weekly. I love this thing. We are pretty far away from it right now, 88.55. Okay, so we have a ways to go. But it's not unlike Bitcoin to just slam it down real quick, find support, and then push back up. All of a sudden, it's Lambos and yacht parties and the whole 9 yards. All right, so take it for what it is, but that's the weekly right there. And the daily, it's just really indecision. I mean, there's just nobody's making a move here. There's nothing happening. And right now we have nothing happening. Like literally no buying and no selling. There's just nothing happening. Somebody has to make a move. It's slowly going to the upside. We are still well under our 7 and our 9 EMAs. We have tested and failed. All right. But on the downside, one of the more bullish things we come across is our 100. All right. So this is our 100 daily MA coming in and just providing support when needed. Right. So that's perfect. If we take what we're just looking at here, this is our zone. Right. So support side all the way down 98.18, resistance side all the way up at about 10.8. We'll call it 10.9. This is our local trading zone. Anything on the hourly or the 4-hour or the 6-hour should have these boundaries in mind for longs and shorts. On the upside, right, still looking for that swing fail test. That would put us around 11.4 today if we tested it out. And on the downside, even though this is not a full trend just yet, breaking or retesting the 100, right? So the 100 at 98.15, breaking that south and finding support on this local trend. If it becomes a trend on a third touch, would be 95.91. So again, just like Jacob said, it's just indecision. Somebody needs to make a move. The only move that's being made right now is a slow, consistent rise, right, with a ceiling. So we do have essentially a ranged out area. You're not really getting any higher than 10.5. But essentially, at least in the last 2 days, you're not really trading any lower than 99. So this little ballpark indecision zone, someone's going to have to make a break for it. It's Sunday, typically lower volume. Weekly does tend to bring some sort of volatility. When the Asian market wakes up in a few hours and they take a look at that weekly, they might have something to say about that, and they might be pushing it down to the 20. We'll see. We'll see. You know, all eyes are on that. And like Jacob said, all eyes are on this, right? So as we look at dominance, we can see we finally, 2 days now, we have finally broke again south. We are headed towards that line. Mine looks a little bit different than Jacob's, but, I would slide that up there. This is also the daily, so it's just a little uglier and a little more chunky. But if we were to break that, first support level is that big one we keep talking about. That's the one that's been tested 400,000 times in the last year. So if we do find support on there, it'd be short-lived as far as alts are concerned, unless that breaks. That for me is the ultimate. We break this level here and we lose support, but it has to be convincing. And you remember back in July, we had a multi-day mini alt season. That's this right here. That's breaking that level. If we do break it again, I expect the same type of action, but I would want to see no support. Eventually, what we did break here, we found support on what you saw on Jacob's chart, this level right here. So we want to break both. Essentially, if we want to see life inside our alts, but we don't want dominance down to 50. I mean, let's be real. We do want to maintain sentiment on the Bitcoin side. We just want to be able to recover the alts enough so that we could trade them. They're profitable and they're propped up so that they can handle a good Bitcoin smashing. And if that's the case, then there's enough life in them to take a 30, 40, 60% hit and not go to zero, right? So that's sort of like what we're looking at as far as what I'm looking at for Bitcoin dominance, for Bitcoin on the weekly and for Bitcoin on the daily. So any questions on that, just throw it in the chat. Any charts that you want to pull up, we'll take a look. Let's see. Don't forget the parabolic question number 9. I don't know what the first question was, so you'll have to type that one in. Thoughts on bearish dip on the weekly? So I'm a big fan of putting more weight on higher time frames. Now that can also be debated as like a 5-minute chart or a 3-minute chart showing diversion plays out fairly more often than like a daily, or at least it'll be realized way quicker. So weekly divergences are good, except you'll probably get multiple ones. You might have a 2x, 3x, 4x diversion before it ever does what you think it's going to do. So, and that could take months, for it to actually realize. So it's very hard to play those. It's very good to see as far as bias when you're trying to take a position on a trade, but it's not necessarily something I would trade on. Daily would at least give me the idea for setups, but weekly is kind of too far out for me to do anything with. Shit's about to hit the fan. Anyone know what the blue circles on the Bitcoin chart? Blue circles on the Bitcoin chart. Not mine. Is that Jacob's chart? Matthew, if that's Jacob's chart, just shout it out. Looks like reversal point.
I can show you the blue chart.
The Bitcoin down chart trading
the blue circles are every time it touched the 21-day moving average in an uptrend.
On that chart. Okay.
The red circles are every time it got rejected by the 21-day moving average in a downtrend. So all of, let me see, grab the weekly. So all of, on the weekly chart, all of basically 2017, we hit it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Here we have not hit it yet, but that's what I was watching for at that level there. All right, cool. All right, I'll be back in a bit.
All right. It was my chart, light blue circles. There was a parabolic run out there. I don't know. It could be anything. I'm like when I look at charts, it's kind of, it becomes scatterbrain material. So I try to keep charts clean for you guys, which is crazy. Because if you saw what my charts actually looked like, it's a total shit show. But I myself break my own charts down and I clean them up completely. I go through cycles. So I'm a visual learner, so I like to see things, and then I'll typically delete them. So nobody brought this up, but I'm going to bring it up because this has been, a talk amongst the town for a little while. This is Dusk USTT push and the sell-off that we've been getting for the last 2 days now. Found support right here, right where it should have, and that's the 382. That's where it originally found support before this big push, right? That was the big higher high. Push back down, found support in that zone. That's the 382 up here, pushed up here. Now, this is a fail as far as I'm concerned. This is the 2618. This is the level it should have hit for a take profit. Since then, we bounced, found a little recovery, 4, 5, 6 period sell off, a little recovery, and a 1, 2, 3 period sell off. And the only recovery we see is just that wick right there. So the level that it's on is good. All right. So that is about the only thing we have going for it. If we're to lose that level, then, then we're in trouble, right? Because then we're looking at the 5, the 618, and the bigger picture, right, is this guy right here. So if we look at the overall structure, right, the area that would make the most sense to come back and retest would be this green zone right here. And really the bottom of the green zone kind of handles this area of resistance, breakaway, support, push, right? So this is your catalyst for your high, which created your all-time high, and that's why this is important. Coming back and retesting this on a bigger time frame like the daily, instead of just smashing down real quick, makes the most sense. So this could go one of two ways. Typically on this type of trend, you're looking for the 423, and that's this guy right here. That's that green box. And you get that by taking the current move, or I get that by taking the biggest move, the local move that started the trend. So clearly, this is our bottom. This is our high. That's our first higher low. This is the move. So I would simply take a fib. I roll it on here. I drop it down. I have a template for just targets. So it's right here, targets. And then that's what I have, right? 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 2. Crypto likes the 4, 2. It likes the 2, 6. It likes the 1, 6. 3, 6 I leave on there because sometimes it will get a reaction. And depending on if I'm scalping or long term, I might take profits at the 3, 6, let it pull back, and then I'll buy back in for the 4, 2. It all depends. So anyway, it's on there and it stays on there. So normally, not normally, but in these types of moves, these strong trends, we like to see the 2, 6 get tagged, quick pullback, and then a push to the 4, 2. Now we didn't get that. Now again, this coin has like history of a few weeks, so there's not a whole lot we can go back and back test on this coin. We just don't know how traders trade it. We know that they've been very bullish, and we know that we have a bit of a setback right here. This pullback, all things considered, for the trend is a 382. I mean, that's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. So when I look at something like that, I gotta pull myself out of the hourly chart and get onto the daily and say, all right, it don't look that bad. So this is support area right here. If we hold it, then I believe the next move is going to be the 2, 6. Right? After the 2, 6 to 4, 2. If we lose it, I don't think there's any reason coming to the 5. That really doesn't do much. You do have structure levels at the 5. That's this right here. So that was your like hesitation point on the way down. So it's a great level, but what's the point, right? You're going to come all the way down to 5. You might as well retest structure down here, the real structure. So 706, 618 zone area is kind of where you want to be. But that'll we'll probably find out later today what's going to happen, whether that thing's going to hold or whether that thing's going to break. And let's see. So the wick that was buying is already gone on the hourly. So it's starting to fail. This would be the lowest allowable and stay, within that range. But until then, it's a bit of a disaster right now. So RSI wise, let's see, we pushed down, double back pushed. They start to level out a little bit earlier. We lost all that, so that's fine. And MACD again to the downside. Signal line obviously crossed bearish, so we got that. And let's see, we're squeezing on TTM for momentum, but we are pushing. We were once bullish, now we're bearish, right? So we'll have to let that play out for a little bit, but that's something to at least be mindful of, because if you do get that support, that's a fantastic rip. Wait for confirmation, obviously, and you'd probably end up waiting for like the 1-6 crossover, which is right about here in the 2219 zone, and then ride it up through the 2-3 and the previous high. All right, let me take a look at, chat's going crazy here. All right, let's see, ASTKNC. All right, when you throw it in the chat, let me know. I throw up USDT charts, so let me know what pair you want, AST BTC, AST USDT, ETH, whatever. Let's see, Matic, same thing, just let me know. I put a Matic chart up earlier, but again, USDT, so I don't know if you guys trade that or not. I do. So let's go 4-hour chart on Matic. Again, this pink thing is it's just a brainstorm idea. Same thing with these levels. This is just something I do when I look at charts. But essentially, you're looking at like a symmetrical triangle, right? Typically when you enter from the downside, right, you're looking for a breakout to the upside. We are very much in a downtrend. But we broke this falling wedge north. So this could go either way. I mean, all symmetrical triangles can, but you'd like to get enter, touch, 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 and then a drop. You'd like to get 3 on each, right? So this is your 1. This is considered your 2 because price didn't reverse. This would have been 3, but we didn't get the touch, right? It stopped right here on our kind of our median support resistance line. And then we've since pushed down a little bit further. So I would be looking for really something to break, right? Now you have intraday plays here, right? It's the 4-hour chart. Just keep these boundaries in mind, just like Bitcoin, just keep those boundaries in the back of your head. You don't want a long resistance, right? You don't want a long up here. And you don't want to short support, right? So you just want to be mindful of what's shaking. Now on the hourly chart, there's nothing going on here, right? There's it's Matic, so every candle is like a 1% candle, but I mean this is all garbage trading right here. It's all sideways action, nothing's going on. You got yourself a little bit of a you kind of got like a diamond bottom right here. So if you were to paint that out, right, you'd have this, 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 and that. It's considered a diamond. So diamond pattern, usually at the end of a downtrend, would be a bullish sign. So, if you were to come up, if you're going to call that a trend, locally, I guess you can. And then you'd be looking at a push to the upside. First targets here. So, you'd have to play this pretty delicately, tight stop, because the first area is your 20 MA. That's this guy right here. So, you don't have a whole lot of room before you should find resistance. That 20 MA was resistance, right? And then the crossover was support over here. So Matic doesn't really have much going on. Outside of like a catalyst of good volume, you can see volume's been garbage lately, right? Very much under what do you call it? Average, right? So you had two big pops right here, which only got you just like a false break to the top side. You ended up testing that the 200 EMA. That's this guy right here. So that guy, bang, bang. So not much happening on the intra. On the bigger picture, again, you're looking to break out of this pattern. So that's sort of what you're watching at. I would imagine there's other trades to look at that are a little bit more exciting than watching Matic right now. Matic is not doing much. When it does pop, right, it is going to pop, and you'll get a nice 22, 30% rip. But it's just not ready to do that yet. It hasn't done it. You are confined to a pattern, and until you break out of that pattern, chances are you're not going to see these big moves. And if you do, it'll be like this: big move up and just a sell-off. If you're not there playing it at the time, it's already gone. All right, so that's Matic. Let's see what else we got here. JC mentioned at previous times that if Powerball is, I believe he already talked about that. My chart, light blue circles. God, I don't know. Parabolic run up to 13K from 6K on my daily chart, on my Bitcoin daily chart. Bitcoin daily chart. Not seeing no circles. Let's see. Was it over here? No. No, I'm not seeing any light blue circles. No, that's the daily chart, but no, I don't see anything on there. But I mean, whatever. If you see them again, point them out. I don't know. We'll talk about them. I'm sure it has an explanation somewhere. Oh, on the dominance chart. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah. Okay. This right here, that's just, I just put those on there as visual aids for myself, right? So this is a trend line. This is a reaction. So when I post a chart or do an analysis for other people, and I do it for myself too, I visually want to see real quick what happened. So I can, and that just makes it easier for me. You just grab the circle tool right here, the ellipse, bang, 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 bang. Hey, all of a sudden you got a circle, and you'll be like, hey, this is what I'm looking at on the chart. It's super important. All right, cool. So now we've discovered that mystery. ETH USDT. ETH. All right, so ETH USDT. Let's pull up the overview. Okay, so ETH had a kind of like a slanted head and shoulders that was forming here. It hasn't quite realized yet. It would need to get back down to this trend line. Although most head and shoulders will either be a head and shoulders with a horizontal neckline or an inverted head and shoulders with a horizontal trend line. This started to form on an angle, not so much a 45, but an angle nonetheless. These are still valid-ish. You just put a little less weight behind them. So, obviously, if this thing were to break to the downside, it puts it like negative, what did it put? $11. So, we're not going to put a whole lot of faith into $11 ETH. I mean, if we do get it, great. I will be very happy. If we don't, I wouldn't be surprised. All right, so let me clean. Do I want to clean this up real quick? No, we're fine. All right, so price action. Let's see. We got a high side 239. Since then, we sold off a bit, pushed up. We found resistance right here on our 20 MA, right? We talk about that 20 all the time. Push back down again, big sell-off. And here's the big deal, right? We lost the 200 MA right here. This light blue aqua, that's your 200 MA. We're on the daily chart, so that's pretty important. Where we did find support, though, it's pretty interesting because we ended up pushing support right here, which is great. Right. So now I should have drawn that out a little bit more. Right. Something like that. Okay. So the idea here right, is that we push up, complete the failure, right? So this is a flip, support resistance flip, and then push down to this neckline right here. We don't need that. That was for another idea. So that would be the idea, right? We got like a little relief rally right here, which is pretty good. All things considered, it's really not a bad rally. It's 11% on Ethereum. That's fantastic. But this is a perfect time to drop this thing down. And on the bigger picture, right, you're looking at these fib levels. So if you look at the whole picture, right now, we're currently on the 618, finding support, dropping down to the 706. That would be confluence with this trend. It would also build out our pattern, our slanted head and shoulders pattern. And then I would be looking at like much further downside. Now, of course, like every other coin, this is very much dependent on what Bitcoin does and what Bitcoin dominance does. If Bitcoin dominance completely shits the bed, then this would more likely all become invalidated. We'd push above this 200, slap the 20, break it, and then we'd be on to new highs, right? So, but if nothing happens, right? If everything sort of just snapshot stays the same, I'm looking at this 200 as a rejection at the 200 and a push down to essentially 165 ballpark area. All right. LTC USDT. So I don't think this is the chart I wanted. Hold on. Hold your horses, buddy. Is it this chart? Well, I mean, we could use this chart. Let's see. This might be the chart. All right. So LTC USDT. You can see this channel on the screen. It was really good. This was a great channel. It lasted, I mean, a while. All right. So we started the channel, technically speaking, this channel started, let's see, about January. And we lost it. There was something that happened. I forget what the hell it was. But we lost it right here in July. 4th of July, we lost it. Found support on our 50 MA. That's that purple line right here. Found support temporarily. Now, when it comes to support resistance flips, this is exactly what we're looking for. It dropped down, closed below. This was a push and retest. That's really all you needed. But it gave you 2 more days to retest it just to really make yourself feel better and 2 more opportunities to get the hell out of this trade. That was back at 123. Then we dropped. Big time. Big drop. Huge tweezer bottom support at 76. All right, so that was good. We started forming this this nice like broadened wedge, this rising wedge. That all got invalidated. That's all garbage. This is all garbage. This is all garbage. None of that ever happened. Oh crap. This is all intraday stuff, so we'll get rid of all that jazz as well. So tweezer bottom on Litecoin 76.80. That was your major support level. From there, you tested it again just the other day and flipped it. So when you draw a line on these charts, right, you get yourself just a visual idea of how support resistance or like key levels, things like that, flip. And this is exactly how they do it. This is sort of textbook right here. You have support, you push up, you made a high, you made a higher low, right? You were in trend only temporarily. You lost it with a lower. You came back up, you had a swing fail, push back up. Now you had a high and you drop back down again below. Now this again, and we talk about it all the time, daily chart, 200 MA, good level for reaction. We got it. And just like that Ethereum chart, right, we flipped it. So we dropped down below, we closed below it, and convincingly. This wasn't just like an accidental dribble. This was a smash. But look at the flip. What was once support is now resistance. 1, 2, we'll call that 3, 4, so far 5 days, full resistance. Now we zoom out a little bit and we say, all right, what are these other areas that are important? Well, this level right here, why is this important? Because we had a huge run up. We came down and found support right there. So the idea is that's an area we might see a bounce. So if this holds, if the resistance level holds and we push further down, expect that area to get touched first. Now, if we zoom all the way out, we'll see that big red line, right? That's just part of the bigger picture. Big swing fail from a high we had all the way back at 416. This goes back to December. That was the end of the bull run. Major swing fail level and coming back and testing it for support, right? That's all that is. So these are just ideas as you plot this stuff on a chart, right? You just try to take a look at it for what it is and say like, all right, well, if I were just to be looking at price action, what would I be looking at? I say, all right, well, I'm looking at key levels of support resistance. Really, like, what has this thing done? And the major idea is like this guy points out, this guy points out. Why? Because these were attempts to make higher highs that were failed. So these are important horizontal levels as we get back to them. 183, 242. These will be important. Just like this is important down here, right? Price came down. What stopped it from going to zero? I don't know. 101. Why? Because it did. People liked it. Buyers bought it. Momentum shifted. All of a sudden we pushed up. So this level becomes an interesting level on the way up. So it'll be a resistance level for us just as it was right here. Follow these lines over and you'll notice reaction and trend. And that's why it's tough looking at Matic and Dusk and, Anchor and these coins that have no history. This is what we like. This is price action dream right here, because these are all indications of how traders traded this coin, when they traded it, how strong they traded it. You could see with volume how much interest there actually was. History in a chart you can't beat, and no indicator that's telling you anything that's a leading indicator, which is already hard to find, as opposed to a lagging indicator, is going to give you this. And this is huge. This is what got you from $3.72 up to 422 cents. And these key levels, when I say look at a chart and look left, I mean it. Look at this level when you found resistance, 99.77. Look to the left, bang, resistance, support. Well, this was hesitation during a massive trend, right? And then resistance. Key levels will be repeated. And that'll happen in every chart, in every market across the board. And it's that's one of the differences with those IEO coins, that there is no history. There's no way to determine how often in a trend it hits a 423 or a 1618 or bails at the 26 like we just saw with Dusk. So these are things to keep in mind when you're looking at charts and when you're charting longer term plays, or at least trying to understand fundamentals. Now, the same thing goes true if you just zoom in, right? We're on a daily chart. We like to see that history. I mean, if you want to fill the screen with data and you don't have that much, scale it down to an hourly chart. But remember, put less weight into what you're seeing. Those are hourly candles. They're way less impressive than a daily candle. All right, so it looks like Jacob is back. What's up, Jacob?
How's it going, man?
Going good.
What else we seeing? We see
we did ETH, we did LTC. I was about to pull up EOS, so if you want to do that or if you want me to do it, it's totally up to you.
Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look at EOS BTC first. I always like to look at BTC first and then USDT afterwards. Especially with dominance falling off. Whoops. I'll just leave that up. Take a look. Total time frame here. Okay, so all-time low to all-time high. Looks like we're just below the 61.8. And is there any key? Not much key stuff going on over here where we just bounced. Kind of middle, maybe a little bit right there. 70.6 though definitely has some, top listing. So we're kind of mid-trend. We came up, tested that 61.8. We're kind of coming back down on the daily. Not seeing too much on EOS that really gets me super excited. Maybe a breakout. Yeah, nothing too crazy yet. Maybe when we break this trend. You can consider that kind of a breakout, but it's trying to put in a reversal structure.
It's trying. You can't harm it for trying.
Yeah, you can't. You can, but all right. So EOS.
You can take 60% away, but that's just not nice.
EOS USDT had this beautiful uptrend. Here we lost the uptrend. Never actually retested it. Kind of double bottoming, but what that looks like to me was an SR flip. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I saw an attempt at a higher low, but really it's a baseline double bottom if you follow the wick to the body closing. But the interesting is the J reversal. So you got that, like, zoom in on that daily chart and you'll see how rounded that bottom is and all that buying for those wicks. The good thing is, as that thing was falling, volume was falling at the same time. And you had that one good push, but that's that one pop that everybody had, literally across the board in the market.
All majors popped for 3 to 7%.
There's just no justification to the move just yet, unless it does something by itself without the market doing the move for it.
I mean, it's possible we get up to like 420. Ayo.
Whoa.
Possible we get up to like 420, 430. But still, not a bullish chart. Let me take a look at the daily and let's put up our averages.
The 4 hour finally crossed the 20, looking to retest it. It did reclaim the faster EMAs to 7 and the 9.
You can see the daily, we got rejected on the 200 MA, which is not great. We're kind of mid-trend. It looks like we're probably sitting right on the 61.8 right now.
Let's see the local move.
No, we're actually sitting on the 70.6. So, I'd probably be looking for a little bit move lower before I start scaling in. We lost our 50. And so, just like I was showing before, we lost the 50, we rejected. So basically kind of right up here when we lost the trend actually. So when we lost like 675, we tested it, rejected, came down. We are showing basically some weakness as we push down below 30. And this is on the daily, which means it has a lot more power. And same thing kind of over here. It can never really get back above. Ooh, look at that key level right there, actually. Same thing back here. It can never really get back above. And then it broke down to the new lows. But here, you can see we broke above this. And then once we broke above that and started kind of shifting to the upside into bullish control, then it had this nice uptrend. So we're still scarily, it kind of looks a little bit like this back here. We had the dump into it, little bounce, and then a triangle formation, and then it just kind of pushed down as we've tested this multiple times. So I'm not liking it too much unless maybe we get above this 200 MA and 50 MA. But until then, this is a bearish chart until you can prove me otherwise.
Nice.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to take a look at? Take a look at the SPY, see how that's looking. Still sitting on that 200 period EMA open for the weekly. Take a look at some gold futures. Gold pushing up, but it does look like we've got a little bit of a double top, possible bearish divergence here, and a pretty steep rising wedge. So something that'll knock that down is if Trump says something about stocks and making nice with China. If that happens, we'll see gold dump. So a bit high. I was expecting a retest of this kind of previous resistance support line here. So I was expecting a fall back down, and that's kind of where you can reload. Let's take a look here. Matic. Not much going on with Matic. Having a little shallow retrace. Any specific trades you guys want us to take a look at? Oh, AST, yeah. So AST, what I saw was the order books. There's a specific pattern that's usually pretty damn good for knowing reversals. And basically, we're just coming down to the apex, very rounded. It looked like it was worth the risk for a pop here. Massively oversold. Big bearish divergences. Overall, I liked it, especially even just up to here is 22%, and that's kind of what it does every time it touched that support line. It would bounce off and then kind of go up, touch the resistance, and then move across and then dump lower. But we're getting very close to an apex here, so I like it. It's basically we've got this trend line here. If it breaks that, we exit, but I'm expecting a 20 to 25% pop to the 200 MA on the 4 AST and then the KNC. AST and KNC, I mean, these are higher risk reversals, but I liked both. They form this nice support base, nice bullish divergence, and you could see last time we kind of had this same flow. It kind of culminates in a bit of a high volume blow off top. So, to the next MA, it's about 11%. So that's kind of what I was looking to squeeze out of that. ERD, see if it's, pushing up nicely. 4 hour, 200 EMA, 200 MA coming up. 2030 was the top side of this resistance. So that's one thing that I'll be watching for. Anything else you wanted to cover? Was there any big news? Bakkt is launching in September, so that's something to be watch out for. I don't know if you guys saw the Ivy Livermore Satoshi. I don't know if you guys saw
the announcement of the next Satoshi who's going to reveal himself.
Yeah, total bullshit.
Good times.
Fake Toshi.
Gotta love crypto.
Hold on. Where's this guy at? There's a whole article. I'm trying to find it though. It's on like Ivy Livermore or something. Yeah, if you haven't read it though, it's actually really funny. The article's ridiculous.
I don't want to say don't look now, but guess who just found daily support on the 200 MA? Doge, baby.
Oh, really?
Doge USDT taking that 200 to a whole new level. Tested the 20, failed yesterday. Has already pushed up today.
Doge is the leader, man. That's what leads the alt seasons.
Doge has been known to cycle some pretty ridiculous moves.
I've traded about 4 of them.
Now the last time it broke the 200. Now you can only happened so many times on Bittrex, but the last time it broke, it did have a 2-day push. Was pretty solid. Came all the way back down in about 4 or 5 days to solidify support on the 200. But once it did that, that was the door opener for a fairly solid 50% rip, which was nice. because it did go on to make another higher high.
RSI Daily's also breaking up, so that's interesting.
Let's take, yes, indeed it is. Do also have MACD momentum, 2-bar, 2-tick to the high side. MACD signal line did not cross over. Momentum on TTM is not shifted, still bearish. But it is something to look at. Volume is disgusting. But that's also Trex.
Don't look at Baytrex volume, dude.
Yeah, Trex doesn't really report volume properly. So yeah, it's something to just keep an eye on. Never know what Doge could do, but you want to be in it when it does it. I didn't take a look at Doge I didn't take a look at Doge BTC, but I would imagine it's probably holding up fairly well.
Let me grab you. There you go.
Let's see. Oh, okay. So let me do Doge BTC. Let's take a look at that pair. Oh dear Lord. So what do we got here? It broke this big massive channel. Blah 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 to the downside. Let's see. Daily wise, everything looked terrible. It's terrible. Nah, this is bad. USDT way better. This is just finding EMA 20 support crossover. So to finally get your EMAs back under price and above your 20 is at least the first signal as a go ahead for short terms. But this is severely in a down. Everything about this is bearish, right? So the reversals, look at previous reversals to give an idea of whether it's even worth taking. And you had a reversal right up here, but again, right, resistance at the 7 and 9. Reversal over here, again, resistance at the 7 and 9. You ended up topping out of the 20. Resistance over here, again, push up, broke your 7-9, got it, regained your 20, but only for one day, rode it, lost it. Again, another reversal here, 7-9 resistance. So this is one of the few times in this trend where you do have confluence of 7-9 and 20 under price. That being said, you have resistance right above you, historical at 28, and then you have a 50 MA sitting also at 28. And look at that. The separation is ridiculous. Doge is not something I would trade BTC, but there's just no resolution here. 3%, like in between moves, just there's nothing to do. I would either trade this USDT or ETH. That's a personal thing, but that's because I like to get in and get out. If it was a long-term trade, I would sit in BTC. But other than that, I would look for a higher resolution just so I could get the hell out. I don't want to be stuck in there forever. And those books, I'm sure, would be ridiculous. Let's see Doge on Binance. That was Trex. So let's see what the Binance. Wow, what did they list this yesterday? What the hell's going on here? No, they just listed this on 4th of July?
Yeah.
Wow.
First time.
There's no reason to look at that. We can look at Polo. Polo's been around forever, so they probably got a little history here. BTC, Polo. Yeah. All right. It's not going to be much different. I was just looking for a better resolution. No dice. It's all the same. So it's something to look at on the USDT trade. Not so much on BTC, Doge, USDT. So I would look at this as strength. It is super risky, extra high risk, but it's Doge. How could you not trade a coin that starts out with a happy little dog? Meme coin goes local, goes bananas. Again, low confidence in these previous reversals. And I don't like this chart, so we'll have to get the other one back up. Low confidence in those previous moves. This is something that you would really have to, you'd have to babysit this trade, which is not fun. But you would have to watch it. This is what you're looking for. You want to maintain support at your faster EMAs. Maintain your 200. That's huge. So something like this on like an hourly chart, that's probably where you get the most fun out of trading it. And it looks horrific. So yikes. But you would use each one of these MAs as a ladder. That's really how that works. So if you're on like an hourly chart and you see something like looking like this is where everything's starting to work its way. Eventually, like a picture like a guppy or a ribbon, these will all converge, flip, and then work to the way to the upside in a reversal. So anything you're doing while that reversal is happening in the very beginning stages of it is going to be a laddering effect. You essentially just go from one MA to the next. Support on a lower, resistance on an upper, break it, close above it. That turns to support, resistance on the next, break it, close, retest it, push back up to the next one. Of course, if you're 200 to 200 are only like 1% apart, just babysit the trade. But yeah, this is terrible. Oh, the volume on Trex is like, what?
It's terrible, man. Like,
doesn't even exist.
There was a coin I remember I played called Music Coin, and I remember I made, I don't know, 200% off it, and I just checked it the other day. 1 Satoshi, baby.
What? Killing it. Killing it. I mean, it can't go down. So
I mean, they can delist it.
That's okay, but then it becomes more rare.
Wait.
So hourly on Binance.
Oh shit, they did delist it.
Oh, Jesus, that's terrible. Hourly on Binance. This is what I'm talking about with these MAs, right? This is resistance. Use those as profit targets. Right, so just the hourly alone, you have support on the 7.9. That's great. You got support at the 20, the 70, 150, yada, yada, yada. All is good. You broke, right, at the 200. You broke it. That's the 200 EMA. You also broke the 200 MA, and it was all profit taken. Sold it, sold it, sold it, sold it, sold it, and you've closed. So, well, you haven't closed. You have 4 minutes and 45 seconds to close this candle out, and the close would be below the 200 EMA. A break and close above the 200 EMA then gets you back in for a push for a break and close above the 200 MA. And of course, you look at other indicators at the same time, but local trend would net you a low, a high, a higher low, and a higher high. So although it's not a whole lot to look at, it's at least, an hourly trend, which isn't significant, but it is something. So you look for another low, support area, and then another high, something like that. Right. So you probably find a pattern or two sitting in here, depending on what you got as far as pullbacks. So let's see. From A, your pullback was 678. So you're in line of a Gartley. 618. It's got to close below the 786. So the next push up was a 1.3. So now you're looking at either a shark or a cipher, and that would bring down to like a 786. So if this were to reverse and follow patterns, see a 1-1 with a 7-8. So you'd be looking at something like a cipher or a shark. So this wouldn't bode well for the long players, but to realize D, remember you have nothing until you have D. So as far as harmonics are concerned, this is just visual ideas until you actually hit D, price reverses, and then you have something to look at. Could also be ABCD. So that's also something to keep in the back of your head. A, B, C, D, the way that works is just the move from A to B equals the move from C to D. And generally, you'll see something like a 618 to like a 127 or a 1618. So this is telling you from A to B, the pullback was a 618. And then your BC, right, extension was a 1.3. So above, that 1272 that Jacob was talking about yesterday, the 1414, it's right in between those two. So it's just healthy for trend. It's just another way to look at markets. A 1-2 on here would be bearish. So you look for the bearish pullback, and that's what this would be. So essentially you'd be looking for structure at that level. So you just pull out one of these guys over here and say, all right, what's my most obvious structure? This was the most obvious area of resistance. That would be the area that you would want to come back to. So long as that area is higher than your previous low, you still maintain your trend. So you would just look for something easy like this and like that. So a push down, support, and then continuation, right? Again, this is on the hourly chart, so you don't put a whole lot of weight into it, but these are These are ideas on what price action is doing, could be doing. You like to get confluence on something like that with like a MACD, an RSI, TTM, momentum, candle volume, what's happening, way above average, huge volume coming in for this particular move here. So it's always good to just get an overall view on what's shaking. And again, we only looked at the hourly because this gave you an indication that, all right, the daily is doing something, right? The daily is giving your fourth bullish day, slight reversal. This is the Binance chart, so we don't have that 200. It's not showing up. But on the Bittrex chart, it was the 200 that came in and landed support. So that's the reason to zoom in and see if this thing's actually even doing anything. You come in real quick and just get your highs with a fib. So just grab your high, grab your low, right? And then put something on here that makes a little bit more sense. And then you can say, all right, well, we pushed back to the 382, pulling back to the 236 for confidence in trend, and then a push up there, target the 5 or the 618. So just different ideas, things to look at, things to, wrap your heads around of when you get super bored on a Sunday night. It's up to you.
Any outlook on? Hey, so is it worth trying to get a fill on ZIL BTC? 74 sats. Let me take a look. Oops, leave that up there. It's at the very bottom of the zone. I would be a little bit, well, I think 74 would be okay as long as it holds. It was a previous resistance, came back, retested as support. Ideally, we just see Zilliqa kind of pop off to the upside here. It's forming a little bit of a bull flag on that previous resistance. So if you can get it, my orders got filled at 75. So 74 orders would have been nice, but ERD selling off after the big move. Dusk almost coming back down to our 1618. Oh, this is interesting actually. Is this what I was looking at? AGI pulling back to the neckline here of the breakout. Somebody asked about Anchor. Link getting some sell off after the daily close. Oh, it's not getting sold off right now. Let's see. Hypercash was one I've been watching. This one really likes to pop off. We kind of went middle of trend here. Reversed it on one massive candle, but it does still feel like there's a lot of buying left in that. Anything else worth noting? AST. Yeah, that looks like it's trying to pop off here. One of the ones that I just mentioned at the start of the stream. Okay. FTM. Close to that 50% fib. Might pop off like EVX did. Raven, we got stopped out of this one on that massive liquidity wick. We could have tried to buy back in down here at the 313, 312 left. But just the way that all the supports are breaking, it just didn't seem like a good trade to me. Yeah, I am seeing some really solid setups though. We just need some confirmation, and we need that Bitcoin dominance to break down. Close, but no cigar.
Not just yet. Not just.
We're getting really close to kind of move either way. I prefer to trade on Mondays over weekends, more out of habit with the other markets that open. The volume is pretty terrible on the weekends as well, but yeah, so we really have to wait for this triangle to resolve itself. We do have 10,220 as a possible support. But yeah, anything else you want to close with, Chigas?
No, weekly outlook, it'll be interesting. I think we're heading in that zone where it's the end of summer. Like to see not the end of summer, but like to see some more volume just come back into the overall market. And I don't think this will be the week that we see it. But I think as we start approaching September, we have a better chance at that. Uh, Backed is, that's really important information, but it's probably been just not that it's been
Yeah, they've
priced
delayed it
in.
so many times that it's like hard.
Exactly. So until it's functional and the switch has been pulled, I don't think we're going to see any sort of love out of any news stories that try to piggyback off that. Um, and again, it's just we have our boundaries, we have our ceiling, we have our floor. Let's maintain those. One of them is going to break any way you look at it. But we could easily just stay sideways for another week or two, and that really wouldn't be a bad deal. As long as dominance comes down and we go sideways, that is an opportunity for the alts to do something, and we want to capitalize on those opportunities, and then hop back on the Bitcoin train if it's on the upside, or short the hell out of it if it's on the downside. So there's things we can do. We just can't do a whole lot in sideways, right? The safer trades come with confirmations. Otherwise, you flip a coin and take any trade you want. So you do want to be able to have some sort of confirmation to that trade, or just an analysis to a reason as to why and what you're looking for. So we'll keep our eyes on the market and see what's moving, see what's shaking.
Samuel wants us to take a look at Aon real quick. Weekly still in downtrend, but it does look like it's trying to form a little bit of a base of support here. I mean, this thing was had a lot of hype around it, but just weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of downtrend. Very impressive stuff here. Like every other alt that we saw, but let's see if there's any sort of support resistance. So the 200 MA is way up here. 2050 still crossed to the downside on the daily. So high time frame, not a great looking chart. Bit of a falling wedge structure, but it's a very long falling wedge. Let's take a look at the 4 hour. Still below the 200, both 200 MA and 200 EMA. Lots of rejection, so still not something that I would probably go long with yet. Cool. All right, guys. We'll see you guys for the next weekly closing. VIPs, we'll see you guys tomorrow for the Daily Open webinar. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, guys.